few weeks because everybody is back in school from spring break. So again, we're watching this driver really kind of weave in and out of these lanes, trying to figure out where exactly the direction is going. But he is staying in the carpool lane. And as we watch, we're keeping a close eye on him. Haven't seen anything. He did close his windows. It seemed like it was partially open before, but now it looks like they're closed. So obviously going quite quickly, navigating the 170 north, obviously approaching Sun Valley.
Yeah, windows back up, two units right behind him. Those are the only 2 units in the pursuit. That is the transition ramp onto the northbound side of the 5 freeway. So the 170 has come to an end. He's transitioned onto the 5 freeway where traffic is moderate to heavy, but it's only going to get worse the further north he gets towards the Newhall Pass. He's in Arleta now as he looks for any space in these lanes to weave through. It's very dangerous, but I've got to tell you, with an unpredictable driver like this, it's still safer on the freeway than if he was to get off on surface streets and to continue driving this recklessly. You can see he is in a real rush now to get away from all of these other cars, kind of skirting through here, looking for any space, like a linebacker trying to rush through an offensive line there. You can see he's continuing to weave through all of those cars, maybe looking at some of these exit ramps, but he's not taking any of them. He's bypassing all of them as he continues these unsafe lane changes at a pretty high rate of speed despite the moderate traffic.
Yeah, we saw him stick his arm out the window. Not sure if he was doing any signals to the helicopters above or the police behind, or the CHP behind him, but yeah, he was zipping across 4 lanes and really high rate of speed there. I think we are going to let you know that we're going to be staying on this here on live TV, ABC 7. Or are we going? Wait, we're going to be streaming or staying live?
No, we're going to be streaming.
We'll be streaming at abc7.com and on the Los Angeles app. You can stay tuned for World News Tonight, the live version of World News Tonight with David Muir. But we are going to stick on this. If you want to just switch over to abc7.com or our Los Angeles app, we'll continue to follow this.
Absolutely. Again, as we're winding down to the last minute of our broadcast here on Channel 7, again, we are going to go streaming. So if you do have ABC 7 Los Angeles app, get right on it so you can continue to watch this breaking news. Again, you're seeing this driver just really making his way through the Pacoima area, but he's been driving at a really quick rate of speed, and the CHP, they've been very close behind. I know that doesn't seem like they've really let him out of their sights or have gone into that tracking mode, which many times when these get really dangerous, they decide that maybe we should ease up on that pedal behind them.
And on our website and ABC 7 Los Angeles app, we're going to be talking to law enforcement expert Bruce Thomas, if you want to join us there. In the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful afternoon. We'll be back here live on ABC 7 for Eyewitness News at 4 o'clock. Stay tuned.
All right, you're continuing to watch this breaking news on our streaming platforms. We've been following this car pursuit taking place from the CHP on the 5 North, now in Mission Hills. This car was wanted, the driver was wanted for making an unsafe lane change. And then, of course, that routine traffic stop sort of triggered him to put the pedal to the metal and try to get away from authorities. And this is what we've been seeing, weaving in and out, Ellen, and, you know, going really fast and unsafe. Yeah, and then we are also going to be joined right now by our law enforcement expert, Bruce Thomas. And, Bruce, you covered a lot of pursuits with us. I can't even count how many you've covered with us. What can you tell us about what you are seeing so far?
Well, my understanding is that it was a failure to yield for some unsafe lane change, basically traffic violations. And now what the driver is doing is endangering everybody's life by continuing to drive in a wanton disregard for speeds and lane changes. Ultimately, what we found out in these cases is the driver may just have a suspended license or have some warrants for unpaid traffic tickets. Oh. That would be a shame, to be so nervous to pull over because you're scared about what's going to happen about something. I mean, it's not trivial, but something as minor as parking tickets or expired driver's license. It's in a lot more trouble now. No kidding. But anyway, as you said, Bruce, you do see it happen. And also, we do have Chris Christie. He's overhead in Air 7 HD. He's been following along with us as well.
Chris, I don't know how the traffic is starting to look, but again, we were saying this is sort of that beginning of the afternoon commute.
Well, he had a rough patch there for a minute, Colleen, as he made his way past the 118 freeway where it splits, and now you can see where the 5 splits, rather, and now he is on the 5 freeway where traffic has broken through a little bit, really stop-and-go traffic as we make our way further north through the Sylmar area and eventually into the Newhall Pass, which appears to be the direction he's headed in, has passed a number of exits but has not gotten off at any of them, just using whatever space he can on the freeway to try and squeeze through, splitting lanes, threading the needle, coming very close, a lot of close calls, but from my vantage point has not actually made contact with any of these cars. And with all of this traffic, you can see them applying a little more pressure, trying to stay right behind him and trying to prevent him from getting too far away where they lose a visual. They don't want to lose a visual of the suspect because right now there are no air units handy, from what I could tell, able to call this pursuit from the air. So they're really relying on that SUV right behind him to maintain a solid visual and call out those locations and his moves and his speed as he continues moving up the 5 freeway, which is now where we're at here, right where the 210 and the 5 meet up here at the Newhall Pass. Traffic, again, moderate through the Newhall Pass, usually a little bit heavier this time of the day, but he does have some room to play with here, and he is using every bit of it to try and evade that primary officer right behind him. Again, only 2 or 3 officers in this pursuit. California Highway Patrol, the lead agency here, as that Volkswagen Passat, the driver of that Passat, refusing to give up.
Watching them weave in and out of traffic and hopscotch around makes your palms sweaty. This is really erratic driving, and a couple times looks like a pretty close call. So he's certainly desperate to get away from CHP, and it's going to be a tough one to lose him because, you know, where's he going to go?
Yeah, and Bruce, we can maybe bring Bruce back in. Bruce, we're watching the CHP, and they're navigating those highways. They're, of course, very well trained for it. Most drivers are, you know, civilian drivers are not so well trained. But at what point do you start looking at this and say, come on, you might have to back off? Because every now and then we have seen these pursuits come to an end and they let the driver go. It's rare, but it does happen.
Yeah, it does. In this case, all we know of and what we believe are just traffic violations, which are just that, traffic tickets. Now we have elevated it to a felony evading a pursuit, and CHP, it looks like they're going to hand off to other units, possibly Newhall CHP. But this driver is really just weaving in and out and putting the police officers in a defensive mode because they're trying to keep up, but also they have to watch out for all that traffic as they're weaving in and out.
Yeah, I would just think at some point, you know, we know that watch commanders kind of watch and they assess the situation, but what do you think are what are some of the things being considered right now as they continue to pursue this driver?
Well, you know, they have to reevaluate this pursuit minute by minute. Traffic conditions. What is the reason for the pursuit? How many occupants? And the safety of the public, the officers, and the suspect. So in this case, they know where this vehicle is registered. They may be registered up in the Santa Clarita, Antelope Valley area. So they may just go to the house and may cancel this pursuit, or they may stay with it until they have an airship up overhead.
Is that one of the first things they do is run the license to make sure, you know, that car hasn't been reported stolen?
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the first things they do is because they're trying to gain information on the vehicle. Is the vehicle wanted for anything of a felony, armed and dangerous, stolen vehicle, you know, wants or warrants? So they're gaining all that information in addition to the registered owner's address.
Okay.
Yeah, it's stressful though. Boy, watching this pursuit, it is stressful because, you know, the I-5, many of us have traveled along it. You see all these big rigs and trying to, you know, we've seen a few times this driver get very close to a big rig. We know those poor drivers, they cannot stop on a dime. So it's got to be very nerve-wracking for everybody driving this area.
Yeah, and, you know, the other thing that we don't really talk about or think, at these speeds, this is a multiple thousand-pound vehicle, which does not stop on a dime, as you said. And it's basically a moving missile.
Yeah, it certainly is. Wow, we're watching some maneuvering with that car. You know, He doesn't appear impaired, but who knows? We have no idea what he threw out the window or anything. Earlier, he was throwing something out of the window, but he certainly seems to be maneuvering that car pretty well in and out of that, but it certainly is nerve-wracking.
Some more aggressive swerving, guys. If you can hear me, it looks like he has now made his way into the Newhall area, past the Newhall Pass, now committed to the 5 freeway. He did have a key decision point there, whether to get on the 14 or stay on the 5. He has decided to stay on the 5 freeway, now passing Calgrove Boulevard, and again, looking for any inch of freeway to get away here. Something tells me they're going to take this all the way through Santa Clarita, because right now the best tactic, by my estimation, is to just let him use up as much fuel as possible. Pit maneuver, rather, not an option here. Obviously, spike strips aren't going to work on the freeway, but they could certainly put the pressure on and keep him on the freeway and hope that he starts to run low on fuel. Again, we have no idea what that gas tank looked like when all of this started, but the 5 freeway obviously goes all the way up the state, and they have plenty of CHP officers up and down the 5 freeway and plenty of division offices to hand this off if they need to. Again, time is always on the side of law enforcement in a situation just like this, and I'm sure Bruce can attest that really, at this point, is the best option. Look at this, squeezing through, threading the needle,
goodness.
And some really frightening moments for all of these other motorists in the way here. But so far, he's shown some degree of capability and has maneuvered this vehicle fairly well. It's treating him pretty good, and he's been able to maintain control of the vehicle. Now he's got a large shoulder to play with, and again, that's great news, because it just keeps him further away from the rest of that freeway traffic.
Traffic has seemed relatively light, Chris. I don't know what you see up ahead, if it's going to come to a halt, but it seems pretty light for a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, the further north we get through Santa Clarita, the lighter it's going to get. You know, there was hope of a few traffic jams as he made his way through the San Fernando Valley, a couple of freeways joining, and then up the Newhall Pass again, where traffic kind of bunches up on the 5 freeway. But now, the further away he gets from the metro LA area, the lighter traffic is going to get, and that's going to, I believe, prompt him to speed up quite a bit. In fact, we're seeing already pretty close to triple-digit speeds, about 100 miles per hour as he passes McBean Parkway.
Oh boy!
Wow, and of course we're talking about this driver. It appears it's possibly their car, because they're driving it with such fluidity to it. Bruce, I'm just curious about these poor drivers on the road, and many of us, we move to the right when we see law enforcement coming behind us. But when you're seeing a car that's just kind of careening right behind you, what is your advice for people who are just driving with their families, picking them up from school or on their way home? I mean, it is scary.
Yeah, it's very scary, Colleen. And, you have a conflict, because you're taught pull to the right of the road when you see an emergency vehicle. However, in this case, they're not the issue. It's this reckless driver who's weaving in and out. So with good intentions, you pull to the right, and now it's occupied by this suspect vehicle. I would just recommend to people, stay in your lane, stay your speed, let them go around you for safety's sake.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh,
we always see some people try to get in the way and try to block these drivers, especially when they get into traffic. But I'm always thinking, if this person is so intent on getting away, you're not necessarily safe.
Right, exactly. And plus, we've seen him go in and out of traffic, so it's hard to decipher where is he going to go next, or determine where he's going to go, which lane is he going to take. And this guy.
And the last thing we want anybody to do is to get involved in this pursuit.
Yeah,
Right,
there it is, 100 miles per hour.
Yeah. Also passing Magic Mountain Parkway there, or close to it. And after that, the traffic does get a lot lighter, because there's not much after Magic Mountain Parkway. A lot of industrial
Looks like he
area.
did hit something. You see that? I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Sure
that
do.
right rear view mirror now dangling by a thread, as he must have come in contact with somebody during all of that weaving in and out of traffic. He is speeding up quite a bit as the freeway traffic has lightened up considerably. You said it, Colleen and Ellen. We are right next to Magic Mountain theme park, and he is continuing northbound on the 5 freeway. Those 2 primary units behind him serving multiple purposes. And one of the really great things about the pressure they're applying here is that the traffic near him is well aware of those lights and sirens that are immediately behind him. So that's a key indicator that, again, as Bruce mentioned, best idea, stay in your lane. More narrow, close calls there, but best idea for these drivers to stay in their lane and just continue to follow the rules of the road. Give this guy as much room as possible. If you see him coming up from behind you, that's really the only thing you can hope for. But again, those lights and sirens play a key role in warning all of that traffic up ahead that danger is coming up from behind. And now you can see he's got all 4 lanes of the 5 freeway to play with here.
Yeah, 92 miles an hour, too. Incredible.
Yeah, he's hovering between 90 and 100, so I think that's going to be the speed that we maintain here. And of course, if he does maintain that speed, he will exhaust more fuel faster, and that also is good news.
Yeah, we can only hope. It's always when a pursuit starts, you just hope that he doesn't have a full tank or she doesn't have a full tank.
Right, and hope that the car isn't totally fuel efficient. But Passats are pretty good. I know that I had a VW Jetta, and that little car could go from many miles without having to fill it up. So anyway, we are staying on top of this pursuit. Again, this started, the original want was an unsafe lane change, which then triggered this whole pursuit to take place. And the CHP, we've been noticing, Bruce, you are our law enforcement expert. As Ellen said earlier, you join us many times on these pursuits, numerous pursuits that are all different. And the suspects, they're just as different as the pursuits themselves. So when you see something like this, they're going such a long distance. They're not taking surface streets. What does it make you kind of, if you're getting into the mind of them and you're getting into the mind of authorities who really are adding the pressure, as Chris said?
Well, one of the things they're doing is you have CHP. They have multiple stations along the 5, and they'll hand it off as they need to hand off. The old adage, you're not going to outrun the radio. So they're radioing ahead, putting units in position to take over this pursuit. But, you just have an individual whose speeds, as Chris said, are just 100 miles plus. So the recklessness of this pursuit, even with light traffic, is just such a danger to everyone involved, especially the uninvolved motorists who are just driving on the freeway.
Threading the needle through 2 cars and lanes that are adjacent to each other. So, this guy has already hit his, looks like his rear view mirror on the passenger side. So who knows if there's any other scrapes, but that's going to be a scary situation, just driving along and somebody just bumps you.
But yeah.
What do you say?
We were just saying it's pretty scary, Chris, when you were talking about the rear view mirror on the right side. Most of these people, they're on the road, they're just minding their own business. They have no idea what's coming at them from behind, and then somebody obviously was clipped by that rear view mirror, and that's just a kind of a shock for anyone.
Yeah, I was just noticing as well. It also appears that there is some damage on the undercarriage on this right passenger side. You could see some more plastic hitting the pavement there. So he's obviously run over something as well. And there may be a surprise for him up ahead. If they have an opportunity, there may be enough open freeway where they could set up for a spike strip. That's up in the air at this point. It's not something we see often, but we have seen it occasionally, a little more frequently in recent years, where they will give it a shot if the traffic conditions allow, and if there's enough straightaway freeway for them to lay down a spike strip, and then of course for him to hopefully run over. It's got to be a narrow enough part they feel confident he won't drive around it, or maybe it's on a transition road, but there is some chatter about that coming up off the nose. I think there's a whole bunch of CHP units ahead of him, and now you see additional units coming up from behind him, as well as several more patrol officers have joined the party here. And they're doing so at just the right time, because the further north we get here, the lower the ceiling gets, and that's going to be prohibitive for CHP's helicopter to make their way up here. In fact, at some point we may run into a wall of clouds that might prevent us from continuing much further. But right now we're just past Castaic as he continues northbound on the 5 freeway. A few cars on the freeway with him there, lots of trucks. As you can see, but he's got some more pressure now coming up from behind him.
Chris, you know, it's always interesting to notice. By the way, I want to correct myself. The side view mirror.
I think I said that first too. The rear view mirror.
Well, then I copied you
it's
as well.
my fault.
So, you know, well, anyway, we know it's the side view mirror that is dangling on the right side. But we were just seeing, Chris, can you talk about the CHP? They have a really interesting way. You know, you said, you know, there's 4 of them joining the dance, but it is really a well choreographed. What they do is so well choreographed. I swear I just saw one cruiser fall back, another one go take the lead of the chase. They are obviously extremely well trained, but it is interesting to watch how all these pursuits are different, and you do see it is very well choreographed.
That's right. In fact, you noticed a few minutes ago, it was the primary unit that was an SUV behind him. They have since swapped out. There's now a new team behind him. That lead unit is that Challenger, Dodge Charger, I should say, right behind him. So as they make their way up the freeway, again, this started on the 101 freeway. That was likely the Central LA division that initiated the pursuit. Not exactly sure where it started, but we picked it up around Hollywood. And then once he got into the San Fernando Valley, their North Hollywood or their West Valley division took over the pursuit. Again, a new team of officers swapping out in a choreographed fashion, as you mentioned, Colleen. And then once again, as we make our way through Santa Clarita and points beyond, they will continue to hand this off. Division office by division, the different stations will continue to take this over, and they will communicate with the various stations up ahead that this pursuit is coming their way, and to be ready if they have the available units and resources to dedicate to the pursuit. Now, sometimes you might have a station that's low on officers. They're busy with other police business, and they may not be able to pick up their pursuit, and then that lead unit will have a decision to make. The watch commander will make the decision, and the supervisors will work together in deciding whether it's worth continuing the pursuit much longer or whether at some point it's worth just giving it up for everybody's safety involved. But in this case, they are dedicating more resources, not less. And the 5 freeway, as I mentioned, goes all the way up the state of California, so they can continue this dance as long as there is fuel left in the tank. And I think this is probably the best bet. As I said a while ago, this is the best case anybody could hope for, is that he stays on the freeway where the collateral damage is minimal, and now he's made his way far up north enough that traffic is so light that the risks are even less, and as long as he stays on the freeway, it'll remain that way. It's once a driver like this that's so aggressive and so reckless gets off the freeway that you really start to, you just shudder at the possibilities of him running into pedestrians or other cross traffic, and you start getting involved with city traffic. Now, being as far north as we are, we have gotten away from a lot of those risks, and it's just basically, hundreds of miles of freeway left in front of him.
Well, that is one positive sign, because if he was driving like that through city streets, that would be a very, very dangerous, whole different story pursuit. But this is a little bit milder version, thank goodness, of regular freeways. You don't see a lot of traffic, and it would be really fortuitous if they could do a spike strip of some sort, but we'll just have to watch and see what happens. And I don't know how much fog is up in the near the Castaic area, but what's it looking like?
It's not ground fog, but there's enough of a cloud ceiling here, especially the higher in altitude we get heading up the Grapevine towards Bakersfield, where they just won't have the option at some point of flying a helicopter up here. It's going to fall again on those ground units to maintain the pursuit. But as far as ground fog, I don't see that being an issue, at least in the near future. Of course, again, the higher we get in elevation, that could change. But as I look off the nose here, it does look like visibility for those ground units should not play a role here. But we are making our way further up the Grapevine, and sure enough, altitude does play a role. And right now, it's pretty much uphill for the next several miles as he continues to push the pedal to the metal.
Well, let's check back with our Bruce Thomas. And Bruce, what are your thoughts on if this pursuit will continue, or will they just let it, will they kind of sit back and let the driver just kind of go peacefully if they know who he is? What would be the process?
Just backtracking a little bit what you were talking about, the choreography. What they're doing is they're swapping out primary vehicle, as Chris said, to secondary and third vehicles. And that is so the officers don't get tunnel vision. Because typically in a pursuit, the lead vehicle's job is to follow the suspect vehicle. The second unit or a helicopter will call the pursuit, meaning they're giving the ground speed, the direction of travel, the streets, all those conditions and things which a watch commander wants. So at this case, I think they're going to continue this pursuit because there really is not a hazard to the public at this point. Obviously, this driver is now wanted for a misdemeanor hit and run and felony evading and speeds over 100 miles an hour, which are all misdemeanor charges. But in this case, I don't think CHP is going to let this go.
Yeah, guys, we're continuing northbound on the freeway, passing Templin Highway, and pretty much, no man's land for the next several miles up until he gets to Gorman, and then on the way up there, from there, he basically will start getting closer to Bakersfield, where there will be an additional CHP office ready to take over. Look at that, a hand out the window with his cell phone out the driver's side of the vehicle. Not clear what he's trying to convey there, but once again, continuing for a bulk of this pursuit. Every time we get a close look at him, he's got that cell phone in his hand. He's basically been continuing this chase with one hand on the steering wheel almost the entire time. But again, at some point, or just a moment ago, waving his hand at the driver's side window with that cell phone in the air. Those lead units still right behind him here. The 5 freeway, about 3 or 4 lanes as he makes his way through Gorman here. More units up ahead of him. There's actually an unrelated unit, a possible speed trap actually, that just happens to be there. And look at that. There's the spike. There's the spike, and it looks like it was a miss.
Oh,
I caught it at the corner of the screen. A very rare, I would say unorthodox. Bruce could correct me, but I think it's maybe once a year lately that we see a spike strip attempt on the freeway, and that was one right there, but it did not look to be successful. And check it out.
Oh.
CHP coming in with air resources up the Grapevine at low altitude here up the 5 freeway. So more resources, not less, being dedicated to this pursuit. You saw that spike strip. Again, we'll get a better visual of the driver's side here coming up in a little bit to see if there was any contact with that driver's side tire. But from my vantage point, the vehicle appears to be behaving normally, and I don't think he ran over that spike. But a good attempt nonetheless by CHP with those units in front of him. Plenty of units behind him, and now a helicopter to call the shots from up above, giving that watch commander and those supervisors even more visibility as they continue to make key decisions up the Grapevine here as this pursuit continues.
That was interesting. Well, Bruce Thomas, what is your take on that use of that spike strip? That's pretty unusual to see that along the freeway, as Chris said.
Yeah, as Chris said, you don't see that very often. Maybe 1 in 100 pursuits, just because, one, it doesn't present itself because of additional traffic. But in this case, excuse me, all the things came into play. Traffic was light, he was staying in a lane, and CHP was able to deploy that. So, yeah, it's definitely rare, but in this case, a little more aggressive tactic by CHP.
Wow.
So interesting.
It was really interesting, and it was really dramatic to see that CHP helicopter that just kind of go right down, hovering over the freeway. But again, they were probably trying to see it as well. I don't know. Chris, do you think that CHP helicopter was trying to get an idea if the spike strip worked? Is that why they were so close? Or are they
we're playing with some consolidated airspace here, so we're pretty high up, but we're about maybe just under 1,000 feet above ground, something like that. And so they are working between us. We're giving them as much room as possible to do what they have to do. But as we make our way further north here, the good news is that ceiling that I was talking about, that low-level cloud layer, has really lifted. And as we look up further north up the 5 freeway, it's really smooth sailing from here. That cloud layer lifts, and there should be plenty of room now for all of these helicopters to do their job. And now CHP continuing to follow from above and on the ground as this chase continues at 90 miles per hour. And you'll start to see that helicopter, I imagine, pick up a little bit, pick up in altitude just a little bit, but again, closing in on 100 miles per hour.
Boy, and he's still on the uphill, correct?
Still going uphill for at least the next several miles.
Okay.
In fact, I probably even more than that. Probably the next 10 miles are pretty much uphill, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're thinking about another 10 miles of uphill.
Ellen's thinking it's a gas guzzling situation where he's going to suck out all that gas.
Yeah,
It does, absolutely.
To get up that hill.
Especially at these speeds. Sure, 100 miles per hour uphill, he's going to run out of fuel much faster than you or I would if we were traveling up the 5 freeway. And so that's, again, only good news. I think you can only say this is the best case scenario that any of these officers could have hoped for. And hopefully the resolution to this pursuit is just as optimal. Here comes another spike strip attempt. Maybe. Does not look like yep. Spikes across. There's the spike. And he might have hit it.
I think he did.
They got to pull it back, otherwise that patrol car, yep, he hit it.
And it looks like the patrol car went over
he hit it
too.
at least. I think the patrol, did he? You'll have to replay that.
Looked like it.
I think the patrol car might have gone around it, but you can see now clearly that front right wheel heavily affected, immediately going flat. Look at that.
Wow, that didn't take long.
Didn't take long at all. Didn't take long at all, and now it looks like he's about to be running on empty, at least on that front right and the right rear.
Wow.
And the right rear. Both the right tires are now running low on air, and they will be flat here in a second. We'll get around the driver's side if it's possible, and we'll try and get a better picture of what's going on that side of the vehicle. Not one, but two separate spike strip attempts on the freeway. Colleen and Ellen, something I have not seen in some time, but it appears to have been successful in this case, and I think that's going to start to wrap up the pursuit here in the coming minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I think this vehicle is now on borrowed time as those tires begin to run flat.
Yeah, and Bruce, I could imagine that this certainly changes the color of this pursuit. I'm no longer going to be maneuvering at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, definitely. His speeds will decrease, as Chris said, with the spike strip being deployed. They may have gotten a CHP vehicle also, but that's just the nature of the pursuit. I know this is a Passat, and they're front-wheel drive vehicles, but as those tires deflate very quickly, they're going to be...
Okay, Bruce, we have to interrupt you. Bruce, we have to interrupt you for just one moment. News at 4 o'clock in just 4 seconds.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Breaking news right now at 4, the CHP chasing a reckless driver on the 5 freeway, speeds reaching over 100 miles an hour. Thanks for joining us, in David Ono.
And I'm Ellen Lebo. You're watching Eyewitness News at 4 live on ABC 7, Hulu, and wherever you stream. Let's get right to Chris Christie. He's live over the scene in Air 7 HD. Chris?
Guys, the pursuit continuing up the grapevine. A Volkswagen Passat, not sure if it's stolen or what other crimes have been committed here, but a dangerous driver behind the wheel nonetheless, leading CHP on a triple-digit speed pursuit through the San Fernando Valley, through the Santa Clarita Valley, and up the 5 freeway, where just moments ago, not one but 2 spike strip attempts were made. The second one appears to have been successful, knocking out the right 2 tires. You're looking at the left 2 tires on the driver's side, which appear to be intact, but the right tires, both the front and the rear, have run out of air. He is pretty much running on flats on the right side. That's going to slow things down considerably as he continues up the 5 freeway at 50 to 60 miles per hour, continue going uphill with at least 4 CHP units right behind him. In fact, he's made the decision for the first time in this pursuit to get off the freeway. He ran over something, or maybe the tire came apart there, but you saw some debris flying off the vehicle, and now he's getting off at Smoky Bear Road here on the 5 freeway.
We have a replay now of that spike strip. Oh, a big piece of tire just came. Look at that. The whole tread's coming off.
It sure did.
He's going to have
the
a real...
pit. There's the pit. There's the pit. Spinning the vehicle out of control, doing a full 180 underneath the freeway, and those CHP units have come out the other side. The vehicle has now come to a standstill on the underneath the freeway. It looks like those officers are getting ready for a confrontation here. He may have gone for a run. He may have gotten out of the vehicle in a foot pursuit. This is going to be a foot pursuit onto the freeway. He's climbing up the embankment.
no.
He's trying to get on the freeway, guys, northbound side of the 5 freeway. Some trucks coming up there, and now he's in traffic. Northbound side of the 5 freeway, the foot chase is going to stop there because those officers will not chase him across the freeway, over the divider. More oncoming traffic here, and this is so dangerous as he comes out the other side. They will be there to meet him on the other side, but they could, look at that, the K9 unit starting to cross the freeway, turning around there. They will get units on the other side of the freeway within seconds here, and hopefully he will just run out of steam here. Certainly the vehicle gave up on him. You saw the tires come apart, the full tire flying off the vehicle, and then that successful pit maneuver underneath the freeway. He immediately jumped out of the vehicle, went for a run over all of the northbound and southbound lanes of the freeway, and he is now trying to hitchhike his way out of this situation.
Wow. Yeah, I was wondering what he was doing because the CHP is just on the other side of the freeway. He looked like he was running towards them, but yeah, he's trying to hail a car of some sort, staying on the freeway, which we have seen some horrible things happen on the freeway in the past. You cannot underestimate the speed of these cars, but he's now in the middle. Maybe that's, okay, so he's doubling back.
Over the divider again, back on the northbound side.
Oh, dear.
Look at this, trying to carjack a vehicle.
Boy.
He's trying to carjack other cars on the freeway. They're going to have to get more aggressive here if he continues this kind of behavior, but now he is trying to carjack these cars on the freeway.
Oh, my goodness. And they're at a standstill, which is not helping matters.
He's just looking for an unlocked door. He's looking for any unlocked door to try and get out of the situation, but they are going to close in on him here pretty soon. I can't imagine that they're that far back. I don't want to lose him here. We're going to stay pretty tight, but I'm trying to look to see where it looks like he's trying to go down the embankment off the freeway, now going down below, and they should be able to meet him. He's going back where the vehicle is, and there should be officers down there. I don't see them, but you would imagine that there are more officers underneath the freeway,
and
there's one of them.
Okay, we got someone behind him and then someone down on the ground, too.
He might be hiding under the freeway, up the embankment. There's those nooks and crannies up there, as opposed to running down on the street. But there is a unit moving pretty quickly. Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's surrendering.
There he is.
Yep.
Up in the air. Right, David, there were so many hiding spots under these overpasses to hide out, but it looks like he's come out the west side of the 5 freeway. He's now being confronted with a taser. With his hands in the air, he's on his knees, not exactly complying, but here he goes, now about to be proned out on the roadway down below, underneath the 5 freeway, still resisting, 4 officers on top of him, and it looks like he is going to be subdued here as that K9 unit is barking very loudly and very aggressively. You can see this has now come to an end, and thankfully, nobody hurt. After what could have turned into a very dangerous situation. Somebody so desperate that they were even trying to carjack innocent motorists on a Wednesday afternoon here. Fortunately, couldn't find an unlocked door. He gave up on that, and now this foot chase has come to an end.
Wow, that came to
thank goodness.
A dynamic.
It certainly was.
At that. Very good work by CHP officers and everybody else. Interesting spike strip. We'll talk about that. I guess we could debrief on that a little bit later on, but we have a lot of news to get to. But Chris, thank you for covering this for us. And we're going to move on to other news now. 2 former Whittier police detectives have been charged with assault in a 2020 shooting that left a man paralyzed. LA County District Attorney George Gascon announcing the charges today. Officials say Nicholas Carrillo was unarmed and running away when he was shot by the 2 detectives. Eyewitness News reporter Carlos Granda has.